Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast, co-hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher, a podcast that celebrates women, their issues, their thoughts, their lives, conversations that celebrate their gifts, their talents, their courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast. Presented by Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Hey there, it's Mandee. And I've shared the secret of where I go to relax and where I like to unwind. It's Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler. They really have become an essential part of my self-care routine. I go monthly, sometimes more frequently, to get a massage, and they help me with my skincare too. I recently went to have a facial and I decided it was time for an upgrade. I chose the Nano Infusion Experience. And if you are looking for the top service for your skin, this is it. I left not only looking fabulous, but really feeling that way too. Holly took amazing care of me and my skin was so radiant and glowing. Y'all, I was dewy for days. This process infuses your skin with custom serums without needles or downtime, and it's customized for your needs. It might be my favorite skincare treatment yet. The next time you have a special event or you want to splurge and indulge yourself, this is what you want: the Nano Infusion upgrade to your dermalogical facial. Schedule now by visiting Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa, located in Cumberland Shopping Center in Tyler, or book online at handandstonetyler.com.
Welcome back to the Celebrating Women podcast. I'm Ashley Fisher, and my lovely co-host Mandee Montana is not here today. She is suffering on the beaches of Jamaica. But I do have my very dear friend and very longtime friend, Emily Adams, here today. Hello, friend.
Hello.
I'm so glad you're here. Emily came in a few weeks ago to tell us about her really amazing business, Faith Prince, that we aired kind of back around the holidays. And already I knew Emily's story is one that I would love to, first of all, I would love to know more of the details, because even though we've known each other since we were like 4, there are just pieces that I never knew about, and just, kind of what's gotten her from young Emily to grown-up Emily, who now is married and has 2 boys and this wonderful business and just this awesome mission in life. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to get to know Emily and kind of what's gotten her here.
Thank you for having me this morning. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to kind of share my story with y'all.
I've loved watching you over the years because you have just, there are certain people, social media too has allowed us like insight into our friends' lives that even though we don't get to see each other very often, we can kind of keep up. And I've watched you do some really just neat things, and I can tell you've got things on your heart that you want to do, and you like a message that you want to spread. I kind of want to get context though for why.
Okay. Well, I think if I would have a theme of my life, it would be that God is faithful, really and truly. So going back to middle school, like probably, I guess, 50% of kids these days, my parents got divorced. And with that, though, came a lot of baggage and a lot of trauma. And but in that, it was as if, my earthly father was leaving. It was an abandonment situation. But my heavenly father just came that much more near to me. And I could see that just over the course of my life looking back. And so 7th grade, I actually was a nosy little 7th grader.
You were. I can't imagine.
Nosy and bossy. But like I knew something was going on with my parents. I knew that something wasn't right. And I took it upon myself to get into my dad's truck and go through his cell phone.
Oh my gosh. Wow. This does not surprise me though. One iota.
Yeah. I'm still a really good investigator. So if you ever have, that boy that you look and you're like, I want to know who his ex-girlfriend is, I can find that for you very quickly. But anyway, and so I got on his cell phone and I found text messages from another woman. And I immediately went in and told my mom. And she kind of sat me down and had a conversation with me. And, you know, from then, I think that was like a pivotal point in my life where I grew up.
Real quick.
I grew up.
Yeah.
You know, and there were a lot of things looking back that now as a mom, because I'm now the age that my mom was when she started going through all this.
And then is your oldest your oldest is not quite.
He's not quite there. He'll be 10 next month.
That's
I've
insane.
Almost been a mom for a decade. That's crazy.
So weird.
It's crazy how I am still 27.
In your head?
In my head.
Yeah, we talked about how we're both 35 and how but in our heads we are eternally, I'm still eternally that 25, 27 range. And I'm like, I don't understand how people look surprised when I tell them I'm 35.
Yeah. So, but it's crazy to think that on all of the things that I have going on a daily basis as a mom, my mom's a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher. So as a mom, as a teacher, as a wife, as just a homemaker, all these things, she was going through the most devastating part of her life.
Can you imagine?
No, I really can't. And it has given me so much more appreciation and love for my mother.
Yeah.
And just how she fought so hard for my sister and me.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's one of those things that, again, the faithfulness of God in my life, and not only carrying me through that as a 13-year-old and into adulthood and all that stuff, but then being gracious enough to let me see that in my mom and appreciate that much more of her at this stage in my life too.
Could you see it then, or was it harder to see it then?
I knew that I needed to be more mature. I knew that I needed to step up. I knew that she needed me because at that point he was gone, and there were a lot of tears. There was a lot of, Emily, I need you to take care of your sister.
Oh,
I learned how to cook.
Yeah. Wow.
I learned how to cook. But Ashley, she was working 2 jobs. She was working.
Was she really?
She was. She was working at Rice and she was working at Dillard's. And
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Didn't remember that.
Because he did a number. He did a number on us financially too. And if it wasn't for my grandparents, my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't also take for granted how blessed I am to not only still have my grandparents in my life, my boys go over there for breakfast and lunch and all sorts of things, but to have them, they're also picking up pieces.
They've always been so precious.
Oh my gosh.
I remember your birthday, I think you were in first grade, so I was in kinder or primer, whichever one of those. I think it must have been kinder. I remember your sweet grandmother. And I remember you had a slumber party and you had all these girls all over the house. And I remember they were always so active in y'all's lives. And I remember her sitting there and she's like, no, I'm just going to rest my eyes for just a minute.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. They've always been just real pivotal in our lives. And just, I don't take them for granted at all, you know, the gift that they are. And, but with that, so, middle school, all the things. But I think that's when I also started to develop severe anxiety as a teenager.
Well, and let's not neglect just the massive statement you just said. Middle school.
Middle school.
And to have all of this breakdown at that time is, anxiety would, I'm sure, creep in.
Just a little bit. But again, the faithfulness of God, because here's the deal, he knows what's going to take place. And he knew that at, 21 years old, I would be at Baylor University majoring to be a middle school teacher. Mm-hmm. Now, I teach both middle school and high school, but, my heart started to shape at a young age to be sensitive to things. And because of what I went through, I can be that much more, empathetic to kids at this stage, no matter if it's parents going through a divorce or just their boyfriend broke up with them, or they got in trouble, or they got a bad grade, whatever. It's just like,
you see them.
I see them as,
Yeah.
6th, 7th, 8th graders. And, even, so I teach 8th grade and I teach seniors. I teach senior both. And, I guess just high school kids in general, middle school kids in general. They have a lot more, I feel like, going on with social media and things like that than what we had to deal with.
Yep, we had instant message, and that was kind of
MySpace.
And MySpace. I never got into MySpace. I think it's because I knew it would hurt my feelings if I wasn't someone's top 8, and I didn't have the heart to do that to anybody else.
Yes. And so just the comparison and things like that. And so I just think about how all the stuff that I started to go through and experience anxiety and not know what it was, and experience depression and not necessarily know what it was.
Yeah.
Thankful that I had my grandmother and an aunt that was there, and friends that were there to help me through, when mom was having to, rightfully so, deal with her own stuff.
Yeah.
Friends' parents. I'll never forget, during this time, I had a good close friend, and her parents were huge in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Pick me up, take me to church.
Mm-hmm.
We lived way out.
Yep.
15 minutes, 20 minutes away from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come, and on Sundays and Wednesdays, pick me up, take me to church.
Yep.
And my aunt and uncle did the same thing, would take me to church. And so just thinking about those things and the people, and being extra thankful for the people in my life during that time to help shape me.
Yeah.
Because I think it was a point where I could have gone either direction.
Right. That's kind of one of those fork in the road moments, especially at that age, where a kid who's going through that is either going to go, well, fine, if this is what y'all are all going to do to me, then I'm going to go do this.
Right.
Or you have someone who, even though she's experiencing anxiety and depression and heartbreak, can still sense like, no, there's more here, and I'm going to choose the harder path.
Yeah.
That path of, just, it is harder, but it's worth it.
It is. And that's what I hope is, my role as a teacher, that I can just help navigate kids to choose that harder path, but better path, you know, and that they don't have to, fall to the negative of things. Right. And so with that, middle school years go by, Chris and Lisa get a divorce. And then mom eventually starts to date and things like that. So funny story, not anything that has to do with anything godly or anything, but got to have some
just a fun story.
Yeah, I got to have some humor. So, when finally, so the man now that I call dad, who's my stepdad, but, Shannon's been in, our lives now for 20 years and, he's just,
There's tissues next to you.
He's just redemption, Yeah. So anyway, he calls. So mom had been on a few dates, and he calls the house one night, and she's out on a date. And I answer the phone, and this is, we still had house phones.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I answer the phone, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, he thinks that I'm Lisa."
Oh no! What did you do?
And I was like, "Nothing. What are you doing?"
Oh no!
He's like, "Well, I was just wondering, if you wanted to go out or, something like that." And I was like, "Well, actually, this is her daughter, Emily. And if you cannot tell the difference between our voices, then you can't date my mom."
Oh.
Click.
Oh my word.
Hung up the phone on him.
And did he call back or what did he do?
Nope.
He's smarter than that.
Nope. And so the next morning we're headed to church. We're in the line. So Big Shot Coffee now in town used to be a donut shop. And
That's
so in
right.
Flint. And so we were in that donut shop line. And I was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Mom, Shannon Hughes called you last night and asked you on a date," but I hung up on him. And she was like, "Are you kidding me?" She was so mad at me.
Oh, man.
But I was like, I was done. I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. And I was just super overprotective. And, you know, because she's my mom. And I wanted, I don't know. It was, you know, the 14-year-old teenager in me. But so anyways, they ended up going on a date and dating for 6 months, then getting married. And so I didn't ruin that, but it's a funny story to tell.
You know what? I'm impressed with you at 14 years old that you actually the next day said, oh, yeah, hey, by the way. Because I feel like a lot of kids would have just kept that to themselves.
I think I think it wasn't so much of a, like I'm letting her know. I think it was more like a dig. I think I was probably like trying to like get a good dig in there. So don't give me too much credit for that.
Okay. I was trying real hard.
Yeah, don't give me too much credit for that. I think I was kind of giving a dig. But with that and the story of my stepdad and, you know, my mom, like really and truly, and then to think about a few years later at 16, I met Jake, my husband.
At 16?
At 16. And, you know, it's just...
Redemption.
Yeah. It is. And it's, you know, because in high school years, so one story that, you know, I tell that I remember that was another kind of a pivotal point is my biological father, he got mad at me senior year for something. I don't think I sent the correct, like announcement for graduation or the right thank you note. Or he got mad at me for something and didn't come to graduation. Just didn't come to my high school graduation. And then in November, I remember I was at Baylor, is in my dorm room, and I get a phone call, and it's him. And he's dating somebody new. So he's not dating the woman that he left my mother for and got married to. He's divorced her, dating somebody new. And she would not have a relationship with him if he did not have a relationship with his children. And so I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I get my dad back.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so then starts this almost emotionally abusive relationship. I say almost. Then this starts this emotionally abusive relationship.
Because it's manipulation.
It's straight up manipulation.
Yeah.
And it was constant through years of, well, if you want me to give you money for school, then you need to do this. If you want, you know, me to help your sister with this, then you need to do this. And I don't know if it was just that he didn't know any better, because I have a feeling that's kind of how his relationship with his parents went. But on somebody that is so tender-hearted as I am, and I'm an Enneagram 2, I'm a people pleaser to my core, always have been. And so I wanted to earn his love, and I felt like I had lost it, you know, a few months prior when you don't show up to my high school graduation, then you don't talk to me from May to November.
That's insane.
As an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, you were a kid. I know we all at 18 think that we like are adults, but we're kids.
We're kids.
And that's your dad. You know, I think almost there's on some level at any age, you know, there are even moments now where I'm like, I know I'm an adult. I'm grown. I've got my own kids, but like, damn, like I'm still your kid, you know, and like you still feel like I need my mom or I need my dad, you know?
Oh yeah. Like the other day. So this is another, you know, rabbit hole side story, but another instance when you need your mom, like both of my boys have things on the same day. February the 8th, Luke has a trip to the Perot Museum, and Nathan is writing this animal project, and he has his animal museum. And I called Mom, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? She's like, you're a grown woman. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
Mommy.
You just need to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And so, yeah, like, you know, you need your parents. And really what I needed was a dad who was actually a father.
Right.
That, you know, didn't just give me what I wanted if I did what he wanted.
But loved you unconditionally.
But loved me unconditionally.
Yeah.
And that it didn't matter if I acted like an 18-year-old brat, that maybe loved me through that and then, you know, parented me a little bit. but that's not what happened. Yeah. And it was just this constant, college was great, but college was tough because I remember at one point I had 3 different jobs. I'd racked up a credit card because he was supposed to be paying for things and he wasn't. And I didn't want to tell my parents because when Mom and Shannon got married, I became the oldest of 6 girls.
Oh, side note.
Became the oldest of 6 girls.
So he came into the picture with 4.
With 4, yeah.
You have a younger sister, Sarah. Okay.
Yes, and the first time they all came over, they all piled out of his red minivan, and I looked at my sister and my mom, and I was like, we're not doing this.
That you're like, what in the Brady Bunch?
Yes. But I'm so thankful because they're wonderful. We just spent Christmas with them and their kids, and it's so fun. But, I didn't want to burden my parents with something that I felt like at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old that I should be able to take care of.
Yeah. Now, when you were in college, did you and Jake go to the same college?
No, I was at Baylor. He was at A&M.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did the long distance thing, which really, it's, an hour and 15 minutes from Waco to College Station.
But still,
Yeah. And so, but, talking about somebody that is faithful is Jake Adams. Just constant in my life, a steady to, he's definitely the cool to my hot, right?
Yeah.
He is a steady hand and I don't know, the exact opposite of, that other man and exactly what I needed in my life. And, when I say that God is faithful, it's embodied in Jake Adams. And so through college and all that stuff, I created more anxiety for myself. That's when I started to gain weight, and having issues with that. That's also, side note, when I was diagnosed with endometriosis and, we thought freshman year, we thought my appendix was rupturing and it was a cyst that was bursting.
Ooh, man. That can be super painful. Yeah.
And so then started a long road of, so I had a hysterectomy at 29 and I think I've had 5 laparoscopics. I think I had 5 or 6 laparoscopic surgeries for my endometriosis from 19 into 28. And so long road with that. So you've got anxiety, you've got depression, you have abandonment issues, you've got this emotional manipulation that's happening. Top it off with health stuff now.
Yeah.
And then also me learning to have a not so great relationship with money and not, so taking all of that baggage and doing all of this as in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then eventually taking that stuff into a marriage.
Yeah.
Was difficult. And so it'll be 10 years in March, that I have not spoken to Chris McDonald.
Man.
And really the icing on the cake, well, not the complete icing, but the start of the downfall of that was when Jake proposed and we got married. I told Chris, I said, I want the man that raised me spiritually, emotionally, and financially to be who walks me down the aisle. And that's my grandfather. And he said, that's fine, but your sister's going to be a varsity cheerleader next year, and she can't if I'm not giving child support and funding it. So you have a choice to make.
Oh, my word.
And
was it clear in that moment how manipulative?
Yeah. It was that point where I was like, I can't believe that I'm having this conversation with you.
That's just nothing but transactional.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't tell this to Jake until 3 months after we've been married.
Oh.
And Papa I told him, that's fine, but Papa's going to be who is on the side of me that gives me away,
Yeah.
that hands my hand to Jake. And he said, okay. So they both walked me down the aisle, and I made Shannon stand up, stay standing. And so there, if you look at my wedding pictures, it's so funny because there's just like, there are these three men, and you would think, oh, she's so lucky to have like these three men in her life that are, but I was just like, at that point, it's supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. I was dying inside a little bit because it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
But, again, like, God is faithful. And I eventually told Jake, and he was like, you're kidding me. And it just kind of started another series of just transactional relationship things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my sister got to be about, I think a senior in college, senior in college. And he started to do the same things to her that he was doing to me. And I stepped in, and I was never going to tell her the wedding thing.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ever. And I had to. Because I did not want her to hurt the way that I was hurt.
Right.
And so we had conversations. We tried to talk to my aunt, talk to him, come to an understanding, and we just wanted an apology. We wanted change. We wanted something, and never got that. He was the victim. We were the bad people. Our mother had manipulated us into thinking that he was, all these things. And it's like, no, we made our own decisions based on your actions.
Purely by observation, dude.
Based on your actions. And so Luke was born in February of 2014. And Chris and I were supposed to meet up after church March 28th of 2014. And I have not seen or spoken to him since then because he never showed up. He canceled on me. And so, yeah, it'll be 10 years this year.
He was going to meet Luke.
I didn't want him to meet Luke. We were just going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And when I told him that Luke was not coming, that he wasn't going to get to meet him, he canceled on me. And I haven't spoken to him since.
You know what? That might have been one of the best things he ever did for you.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly.
And I think about it all the time because I'm like, man, he would have been such a great, I really do think, you would have been a great grandpa. Because he was a great dad until he wasn't.
Yeah.
But I also know that my mom was the one behind the scenes telling him, you're going to coach this basketball team. You're going to go do this. You're going to go on a daddy-daughter date. You're going to go do these things. It wasn't ever him doing those things on his own.
Right.
And, another just kudos to my mother, but looking at all of the things and now being an adult and my biggest, takeaway, encouragement to somebody that might be walking somewhat in the same type of path is that at the end of the day, truly was my relationship with Jesus that kept my head above water. Moving into motherhood and, postpartum and going through stuff with my endometriosis and, health stuff and everything. It's just I had to remember that at this point he was faithful, and at this point he was faithful, and at this point he was faithful. And I know sometimes when people are going through things, you can say stuff and they're like, well, that's easier said than done. You haven't walked in my shoes. And no, I haven't walked in your shoes, but you haven't walked in my shoes either. And we all have our own things because we live in a broken world.
Yep.
Right. And, the biggest thing one of the bigger stories that stands out to me in the Bible is in Genesis 16, and it's Hagar, and she just finds out that she's pregnant with Ishmael, and Sarah runs her off.
Yep.
And she's in the desert, and God meets her, and it is El Roy, and he is the God who sees me.
You see my Bible right here?
Yes.
Before you walked up here this morning, I told you when you came in I was catching up because I would love to read the Bible in a year. And I literally just got done reading Genesis 16. And I underlined, if I could reach it right now, I could show you where I underlined where she says, you are a God who sees. You're a seeing God.
Yep.
If we were to both, unpack all of our stuff that we've gone through, it's just been a constant. He sees.
He sees.
And I don't know, maybe you can help me do this because this is something I've been thinking about recently. Therapy helps. Number one.
Yes, it does. I'm pro counseling.
Yes. Therapy is starting to make some things come into clarity that wouldn't have without that third party that's totally objective and can be like, hey, have you ever thought about this?
Right.
But I've wondered before, God, I just feel like you've just been so present my whole life. I can remember being a little kid and being in my mom's old red Oldsmobile, pulling through McDonald's and me just feeling like he was so near. I could feel him near. I felt like I could talk to him like I'm talking to you. Mm-hmm. And there were moments in life where he did the same thing I'm hearing you talk about, these moments of a lot of pain, and yet he would bring people into my life that were the redemption to that moment.
Right.
In that moment.
Right.
And so maybe that's just kind of how, when I hear you say he's been faithful, it's just a culmination of all of those sort of things. But you have to be very diligent to be aware of that, because I feel like if we focus so much on the pain that we forget or we don't acknowledge, that was amazingly painful. And at the same time, he brought Jake into your life. Or he brought Bradley into my life.
Yeah.
I met Bradley when I was 14.
Yeah.
And then we started dating when I was 18.
Yeah.
And I just think it's my hope for anybody that if they're going through something painful, heart-wrenching, hard, that they would have that same knowing that I had, that I think you had, that he sees you.
He sees you.
And he's not ignoring you.
No. And even when he doesn't feel, I think that's also probably the hardest part is God, what are you doing right now? Because my life is in complete chaos. But he's still there and he still sees. Yeah. And I think it's in moments like that it's important for us to look back and to remember the big times and the small times. I just think about, like I said, my friend's mom who just would pick me up and take me to church. Mm-hmm. That's not a big thing. That was maybe a inconvenience for her because we lived 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
But it was something small that she could do to help keep a teenager on the right path.
Yeah. And here you are at 35 and you remember that.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference.
It did. And so, my encouragement is if you're, however old you are, if you're, 16 listening to this podcast or, 63, whatever, that, maybe a little bit of my story can help you remember that God is faithful and he sees you.
Yeah.
Because like I said at the beginning, I know that we've, divorce is rampant, right? And, narcissistic parents are probably more, rampant than, than what we realize. I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change, anything because it's what's gotten me here. Right. And the ability to have a testimony, to have a story that says, we serve a good God who loves us, and I can show you how he's loved me all my life.
Yeah.
And so, I pray that, your listeners or whatever, that if they are in some type of, chaotic moment right now, or if they're in some type of, just anxiety driven or, depression sense, that, that they can feel a little bit like, okay, yeah, God sees me. And he does.
He does.
He does.
He does. And I think too, like, I hope that anyone going through something like this, that they can see how he sees you in the little ways. It may be little, but man, those little things become the big things. When you look back 10, 20 years from now, you're going to realize how big that little thing was, like her coming and picking you up. So I hope that, I don't know, I just hope that the Lord can make it clear, like, oh, he's, like, this is a little way that he's really showing up. Even though it's small, it's making a big difference, because if you can see those things in the moment, man, does it help, you know? You wouldn't change a thing, that's a big statement for somebody that's been through a lot. You wouldn't change a thing because it's brought you here. It's brought you to now. So what is here and now for Emily?
Here and now for Emily, wow, is just not to sound, millennial, but she's thriving.
Listen, y'all, she is sitting here with her Stanley Cup.
And my Starbucks.
She's living, she's thriving, she's living her best life.
I was scared to turn 30. I was like, this is the end of the world, turning 30. And here I am looking 40, straight in the face. But I have the most amazing husband who just supports me, loves me, is my biggest cheerleader. When I'm not feeling great, he's like, I'm going to cook dinner. I'm blessed beyond, just anything that I could have ever imagined. I've got 2 amazing little boys. Luke will be 10 just in a few weeks, and Nathan just turned 7.
It's wild.
And we are just deep in sports and things like that. And they've just kind of I've taken the lid off of video games, which is crazy, but thankfully I teach middle school, and I'm constantly asking the middle school boys now, what is this? And can I control this? And they're like, yeah, Miss Adams, like, this is going to this parent control and do this. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Y'all are the best. Like,
man, because when you take that lid off, there ain't no going back.
No, there's not. And so I've got a great, amazing family, amazing in-laws. My parents are wonderful. I just found out my little sister's having a little boy.
A boy, I saw that.
And so I just could not be more excited for this baby that she's given me.
You gonna get to snuggle a little baby boy again.
Yes, I am. And then, I'm teacher and cheerleading coach, and I couldn't love my job more.
That's awesome.
I look forward to going to work every day and getting to be with those kids. They're I just work with an awesome group of adults and an awesome group of teenagers. And I've got a great, sweet group of friends around me. And like I said, so yes, as Ben Rector said, living my best life.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my question. That's your here and now, and it is it reads like just a beautiful story. What is your big, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious dream or goal? Like, what's the thing inside of you that you have not been able to shake, that in your mind's eye, you can see it, you want it at some point in the future, but it may not be anywhere near today, but somewhere in the future, you'd like to see yourself doing blank?
Well, there are 2 things.
Okay.
Because there's the professional side of me.
Yeah.
And then there's the Faith Prince side of me.
Yeah.
And so the Faith Prince side of me would like to see, this is a small thing, but to be just a really better business person, like to where I'm not constantly giving stuff away, and then I can function at a better capacity, which Jake is my biggest cheerleader in that. He's like, we're going to close off this part of the garage and we're going to get you a good space. And you really need to start thinking about doing this and da-da-da-da. And so,
yep. That sounds like Bradley. God bless these husbands of ours.
I know. And so really, I would like to see that just the business in general just grow.
Yeah.
But then also too, so I went and got my master's in 2017. I actually found out that I got into A&M and that I was pregnant with Nathan on the same day.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because we were struggling getting pregnant, and I finally just said, you know what? I'm just not gonna, we had a miscarriage. We struggled, and I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to apply to grad school, and Laura, you just do what you want to do.
That's the best way to get pregnant.
Same day. Because I remember telling one of my professors, I'm having a baby this weekend. So if I don't, because he was a December baby, and that's when like midterms and stuff are due, or the end of semester. And I was like, by the way, if I go into labor early, they're like, oh my goodness, Emily, like you can turn your projects in after you have your baby.
I remember that little squish. He was one of my first, I would say he was probably one of my first 10 newborn sessions.
We still have that. We have those pictures up. Those
I
little
love
Ashley Fisher
that.
pictures. Yes, my
Oh,
little
that makes
newborn
my
baby.
heart happy.
So professionally, like I would love to, and Jake said that I'm not going back to get any more school, but I'd love a doctorate.
Yeah. Dr. Emily Adams.
Yeah, I'd love a doctorate, or I'd love to do like a master's in biblical studies or something like that. But as far as, I don't think I ever want to leave the classroom. I'd like to dip into curriculum a little bit more, but I mean, I have a great principal, and I tell her all the time, like, that's why you do what you do. I can't do what you do. Like, you know? And so, I mean, they're not huge dreams, but I mean,
those are though. And here's the thing, what I love and what I'm learning is that we have these dreams that we may go after, but then God's like, yeah, come on, and let me show you what I'm going to do with that.
Right. Right.
Well, so we usually end our episodes asking a set of like just silly kind of random questions.
Okay.
The first question is, first of all, let me just say this before I get into that. Thank you for telling your story.
Thank you for having me. I don't think I've ever done this like this before.
Yeah.
So this was scary, but good.
Well, and I think that I'm learning, man, oh man, am I learning. When we get to the place of scary vulnerability, what it does for us, but what it gives permission for others to do is so worth it. Yeah. It's worth our scared, because you're telling your story might give somebody in their car right now permission to think about their circumstances a little differently, maybe realize, oh, maybe this person in my life is a narcissist, or maybe I'm being manipulated, or maybe, okay, like, all right, God, like, show me where you've been showing up, because right now I can't feel it. I don't see it.
Right.
And those are the big things. That's a huge thing. So I just thank you for being you.
Well, thank you.
And coming.
Thank you for having me.
Now here comes the dumb questions.
Can't wait.
First question is, what is your coffee order? I know this, but.
Yeah, so it changes. But right now, it's a flat white with 3 pumps of cinnamon dolce.
That's good. I was going to ask you, what does the flat mean?
I don't know. One of my best friends ordered one the other day, and I was like, well, that sounds good.
Let's do that.
So let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a cocktail order?
I like a good Aperol spritz.
Oh, do you now?
I do. Yeah, I do. I like a good Aperol spritz.
Okay. I've never had that before.
I recommend it, especially when it gets nice and warm outside. Yeah.
It's like refreshing.
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. All right. And then last question is, if we could send you on a trip, like all expense paid, everything paid for, you can go as glam or as not glam as you want, where would you want to go?
Greece. I don't even have to think about it.
Greece.
Okay.
Like the white and blue buildings and all that good stuff.
Yes. Yeah. For like 2 weeks.
That would be
Just
awesome.
let me go.
Just let you go and eat the food and walk around and take the pictures and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Greece it is. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed my time.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Become part of the conversation on social media. Facebook.com/Celebrating Women Podcast. On Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. The Celebrating Women podcast has been presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. The Celebrating Women podcast is created and hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher. Support the show for as little as $3 per month at celebratingwomenpodcast.buzzsprout.com or visit our show notes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.